I'm Averly Quinn, and my son's bride called me low-class trash in front of 150 wedding guests. I've been sober for 12 years while building a $22 million recovery empire. But this bride had no idea who she was messing with. What happened next exposed her entire wealthy California family as hired actors costing $2,500 per day each. And when I dug deeper, I discovered something that would destroy her perfect wedding in the most ironic way possible. She'd been hiding prescription bottles in her purse, dozens of them, from 4 different doctors. The woman calling me damaged goods for overcoming addiction was secretly popping pills throughout her own engagement. When the truth came out, her fake family literally ran from the reception. Pills were scattered across the head table. My son took off his wedding ring and walked away. But that was just the beginning. What I found about her financial schemes had the FBI knocking on doors within 48 hours. You're about to hear how one cruel comment at a wedding reception unraveled the most elaborate fraud I've ever witnessed. If you're watching this, go ahead and hit subscribe. I have a feeling you'll want to see how this ends. Then please drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let me tell you how a recovering addict taught a pill-popping fraud the difference between real class and fake money. It began 6 months before the wedding, the first time Sabrina came to family dinner. I'll never forget walking into my son Caleb's apartment. Sabrina was sitting on his couch, and when I handed her the flowers I'd brought, she literally pulled her hand back like I might contaminate her. "Caleb didn't tell me you were coming," she said, not taking the bouquet. My son looked embarrassed. "Mom, this is Sabrina." "Sabrina, this is my mother." She gave me this tight smile. "Oh, the one with the situation." The situation. That's what she called 12 years of sobriety. I set the flowers on the counter. "Nice to meet you, too." But it wasn't nice. I could see her scanning my clothes. Clean jeans, button-down shirt, work boots. Nothing fancy, but nothing wrong either. Her expression said otherwise. "Caleb mentioned you work in construction." "Recovery," I corrected. "I run recovery centers." She nodded like I'd said I collected garbage. "That's important work." The way she said important told me everything. This girl thought I was nobody. Over the next few months, the signs multiplied. When I visited Caleb's place, Sabrina would disappear into the bedroom with her purse, like I might steal something. When we went to dinner, she'd insist on separate checks. When I mentioned my business, she'd change the subject. But the worst part, she was changing my son. Caleb used to call me every Sunday. We'd talk about his job at the engineering firm, his 5 years of sobriety, life in general. After Sabrina, those calls became sporadic. When we did talk, he seemed distant. "Mom, maybe you could tone down the recovery stuff around her." I was standing in my office at the New Hope Recovery Center in Scottsdale. Through the window, I could see clients walking to group therapy. Real people fighting real battles. Tone down the recovery stuff. She just thinks it's kind of heavy. Her family's more private about personal issues. Her family, that was another thing. 6 months of dating and I'd never met them. They lived in California, she said. Old money, very exclusive, very busy. What kind of business is her family in? Investments, real estate? Sabrina doesn't like talking about it. She says it's gauche to discuss money. I hung up that day feeling smaller than I had in years. Here I was running 8 recovery centers across Arizona, employing 200 people, helping thousands get clean. But to this girl and her mysterious family, I was just a former addict who got lucky. The final straw came 3 weeks before the wedding. I was at Caleb's place helping him move furniture. Sabrina was in the kitchen on the phone with someone, her mother apparently. "No, Mother, you don't understand. His mother has a past, drug issues." I know, but what can I do? Caleb's already attached." She didn't know I could hear her. "Well, at least we don't have to socialize with her much after the wedding. I've made sure she's at table 12, in the back, near the service entrance." Table 12. Near the service entrance. I'd been in recovery long enough to know when someone was trying to make me feel ashamed. But I'd also been in business long enough to know when someone was lying. Because here's the thing about Sabrina's family that never quite added up. If they were so wealthy and established, why had I never seen a single photo of them? Why did all their social media accounts look so new? And why, when I casually Googled their last name plus California real estate, Did absolutely nothing come up? Most people would let it slide. Most people would sit at table 12 and keep their mouths shut. But most people haven't spent 12 years learning that staying silent about problems only makes them worse. It was time to do some digging. The rehearsal dinner was Friday night at Desert Ridge Country Club. $25,000 for the weekend, Caleb told me proudly. Sabrina's family was paying, of course. I sat in my truck in the parking lot staring at the building. Through the windows, I could see elegantly dressed people mingling with champagne glasses. Sabrina's family had flown in that morning, all 6 of them. Mother, father, 2 aunts, an uncle, and a cousin. I'd finally get to meet the people who thought I belonged at table 12. But as I sat there, something my sponsor Ken Porter told me years ago came back. Averly, the worst thing about addiction isn't the drugs. It's letting people make you feel like you deserve less than respect. If I stayed quiet tonight, what message was I sending? To Caleb, that it was okay to let his future wife disrespect his mother. To myself, that 12 years of sobriety and building a business meant nothing if the wrong person said so. To every client who walked through my recovery center doors, that shame never really goes away. The stakes weren't just personal anymore. I thought about Marcus, a 24-year-old who'd been clean for 6 months. He told me last week, "Ms. Quinn, I'm scared my girlfriend's parents will find out about my past. What if they make her choose?" I told him what I always told clients. Your past is part of your story, not your whole story. Anyone who can't see your worth doesn't deserve your time. Now here I was, taking my own advice, or failing to. I pulled out my phone and looked at the text I'd received that afternoon from Dr. Elena Carter, my business partner at the recovery centers. Elena and I had built this empire together, her medical expertise, my lived experience. "Averly, you asked me to look into something discreetly. Call me. We need to talk." I'd asked Elena for a favor 3 weeks ago, right after overhearing Sabrina's phone conversation. Elena had connections in California from her residency at Stanford. I'd asked her to make some quiet inquiries about Sabrina's family. The fact that she was texting instead of calling meant she'd found something significant. But did I really want to know? Walking into that rehearsal dinner meant facing the consequences of my curiosity. If Elena had found something damaging about Sabrina's family, I'd have to decide what to do with that information. I could ignore it, sit at table 12, let my son marry someone who looked down on me, pretend the last 12 years of rebuilding my life meant nothing. Or I could use whatever Elena had found, risk my relationship with Caleb, risk looking like the bitter mother who couldn't let her son be happy. But there was a third option I hadn't considered until that moment. What if this wasn't about me at all? What if Sabrina was hiding something that could hurt Caleb? What if her contempt for addicts wasn't just snobbery, but projection? I'd seen it before in group therapy. The loudest voices against addiction often came from people fighting their own demons. My phone buzzed. Caleb texting, "Mom, where are you? Dinner starts in 10 minutes. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. 51 years old, 12 years clean, 8 recovery centers, hundreds of employees, thousands of lives changed. But none of that mattered if I didn't stand up for it. I thought about my late husband, Daniel. Cancer took him 9 years ago, but before he died, he made me promise something. Don't let anyone make you forget how far you've come. If Daniel were here, he'd tell me to walk into that rehearsal dinner with my head high. He'd remind me that respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you command by living with dignity. The choice wasn't really about Sabrina anymore. It was about whether I believed my own recovery story. I called Elena back. "Averly, thank God. Listen, you were right to be suspicious. Sabrina's family, they're not who they claim to be." "What do you mean?" "I mean, they don't exist. Not the way she's described them. The real estate business, the old money, the California connections, it's all fabricated. I'm looking at casting agency contracts right now. Her entire family are actors, Averly. Professional actors hired for your son's wedding." My heart pounded. The stakes had just changed completely. This wasn't about a snobbish future daughter-in-law anymore. This was about my son marrying someone who'd built their entire relationship on lies. And suddenly, table 12 didn't seem so bad. It gave me the perfect vantage point to watch everything fall apart. I walked into that rehearsal dinner with Elena's words echoing in my head. Professional actors, casting agency contracts. But I needed to be smart. Accusations without proof would make me look desperate. So I decided to test my theory. The first person I approached was Sabrina's father, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. "You must be Richard," I said, extending my hand. "I'm Averly, Caleb's mother." He smiled warmly. "Wonderful to finally meet you. Sabrina's told us so much. I bet she has. So you're in real estate? Commercial development? Mostly California markets?" "Oh, various regions. Northern California primarily," I nodded. "My recovery centers work with a lot of commercial developers. Maybe we know some of the same people. What's your company called?" "Hartwell Properties. We're fairly boutique. Hartwell Properties." I made a mental note to search it later. I suspected I wouldn't find much. "And how long have you been in business?" 23 years this fall." "Interesting. Very specific for someone nervous about details." I moved on to Sabrina's mother, an elegant woman dripping in jewelry that looked expensive but somehow new, like it hadn't been worn much. "Margaret, right? Beautiful necklace." She touched it reflexively. "Thank you. It's been in the family for generations." "Really? It looks like Tiffany. Recent collection." Her smile faltered. "Oh no, it's much older than that. European. My late husband loved surprising me with jewelry. I have a good eye for provenance." I leaned closer to examine the necklace, and there it was. A tiny Tiffany hallmark anyone who'd spent time in jewelry stores would recognize. "Recent, not vintage." "Gorgeous piece," I said. "Your family has excellent taste." The evening continued like this. Small conversations, gentle probing, watching for inconsistencies. Sabrina's uncle claimed to be a wine collector but mispronounced Bordeaux. Her aunt said she summered in the Hamptons but didn't know which towns are actually in the Hamptons. The cousin claimed to have gone to Yale but couldn't name a single residential college. The real test came when I sat down next to Sabrina herself. "Your family seems wonderful," I said. "They are very accomplished." "Your father mentioned Hartwell Properties." I looked them up on my phone. Interesting that there's no website. Sabrina's jaw tightened slightly. "They're very private. Old school. And your mother's jewelry collection is impressive. Family heirlooms. That Tiffany necklace, especially the Celeste collection, right? Came out last year." Now her face went pale. "It's not Tiffany." "Oh, I'm sure it is. I recognize that setting." Sabrina stood abruptly. "Excuse me, I need to powder my nose." She was rattled. Good. But Caleb noticed our conversation from across the room and came over, concerned. "Mom, is everything okay? You look like you're interrogating people." "Just getting to know your future in-laws." Sabrina seemed upset. I looked at my son, really looked at him. 5 years sober. Good job. Happy. Or at least he had been before this relationship started consuming him. "Caleb, can I ask you something? How well do you actually know Sabrina's family?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, have you spent time with them? Visited their house? Met their friends?" He frowned. "They're very busy and private. How did you meet Sabrina?" "At a conference. She was representing her family's foundation." "What foundation?" "The Hartwell Foundation. They do charity work." Another mental note. "And you've never been to California to visit them?" "Sabrina prefers we keep our relationship separate from family business. She says it's cleaner that way. Cleaner or harder to verify." That's when Sabrina returned from the bathroom, and I could see she'd been making phone calls. She looked composed again, but there was something different in her eyes. She walked straight up to me. "Averly, I think we should clear the air." "About what?" "About your attitude toward my family." "I don't have an attitude. I'm just curious about the people my son's marrying into." "No, you're being suspicious. And frankly, it's inappropriate." Her voice was getting louder. Other guests were starting to notice. "Suspicious of what?" "Of people who come from a different background than you." There it was, the class card. Different how? Educated, established, successful. You think I'm not successful? I think you're threatened by people who didn't have to claw their way up from nothing. Conversations around us were stopping. This was becoming a scene. Claw my way up from what exactly? From addiction. From failure. From being the kind of person no respectable family wants around. Complete silence in the room now. Caleb stepped forward. Sabrina, that's enough. But she wasn't done. No, Caleb, this needs to be said. Your mother clearly resents that my family has standards, that we don't think her past makes her qualified to judge us. Judge you how? By acting like we're somehow fake or suspicious just because we have class. I stayed calm. 12 years of recovery teaches you that angry responses usually prove the other person's point. I never said you were fake. You implied it with your questions, your skepticism. I asked about your father's business and your mother's jewelry. Normal conversation. Normal for someone looking for problems. She was breathing hard now, clearly agitated, and that's when I realized something important. Sabrina wasn't just acting defensive. She was acting guilty. The rehearsal dinner ended awkwardly after her outburst. People tried to pretend nothing had happened, but tension clung to every forced smile and stilted conversation. Caleb walked me to my truck, frustrated. Mom, what was that about? Your fiancé doesn't like being asked questions. She's just protective of her family. They value their privacy. I unlocked the door. Caleb, in 12 years of recovery, I've learned that people who get angry about simple questions usually have something to hide. Are you seriously psychoanalyzing my relationship right now? I'm trying to look out for my son. He ran a hand through his hair. Mom, I know you mean well, but Sabrina's right. You've been different since she came into the picture. More suspicious, more judgmental. Or more experienced. With what? I chose my words carefully. With people who aren't what they seem. He stared at me. Are you saying my fiancé is lying to me? I'm saying that in 24 hours you're marrying someone whose family you've never visited, whose business you've never seen, whose friends you've never met. Doesn't that seem unusual? It seems private. Not everyone broadcasts their entire life. There's a difference between private and secretive. He shook his head. I can't do this tonight, Mom. The wedding's tomorrow. Can we please just get through it without more drama? I hugged him and drove home, where my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The first text was from Dr. Elena Carter. Averly, I have more information. Can you meet me early tomorrow before the wedding? The second was from Frank Davis, a private investigator I'd used when we had theft issues at one of the recovery centers. Got your message. Very interesting case. Can we talk? The third was from Caleb. Mom, I'm sorry about tonight. I love you. I just want everything to be perfect tomorrow. I sat in the driveway staring at those messages. Elena wanting a face-to-face, Frank hinting at something big, and my son hoping for a perfect day built on what I increasingly suspected were lies. I remembered what my sponsor Ken Porter told me in early recovery. Averly, the difference between being clean and being in recovery is action. Clean is passive. Recovery is active. Do the right thing even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I called Elena back. It's worse than I thought, she said. How much worse? The casting agency has emails, detailed instructions about family background, business history, specific conversation topics to avoid. This isn't just hired actors for a wedding. It's a months-long performance. My stomach dropped. What kind of instructions? If asked about real estate specifics, redirect to wine or travel. Remember, the father doesn't discuss business details with outsiders. It's a script. And the payments, someone's been paying Prestige Acting Solutions $2,500 a day per actor for 3 months of prep. That's not wedding weekend money. That's relationship money. Who's paying? An account registered to S. Morrison Financial Services. It's a shell. No address, no staff, no real activity. Morrison, Sabrina's last name. So she was paying actors to pose as her family. I hung up and called Frank. Please tell me you found something. Oh, I did, he said. Your future daughter-in-law isn't just paying for fake family. She's got very real secrets of her own. What kind? The kind that involve 4 different doctors and a lot of prescription bottles. Pharmacy records don't lie. She's been doctor shopping for 8 months. Oxycodone, Percocet, Adderall. Classic pattern. The girl who'd called me trash for being a former addict was actively using. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't about to destroy my son's life. Saturday arrived with perfect Arizona weather. Sunny, 75 degree, not a cloud in sight. I stood at my mirror adjusting the same black suit I'd worn to every important occasion for 5 years. The one Sabrina had mocked as cheap and inappropriate for the circles we move in. Today, it would have to do. Elena called at 7 a.m. I'm bringing everything. Photos, contracts, financial records, pharmacy printouts. Whatever you decide to do is up to you. Frank texted an hour later. Additional evidence secured. We'll be at the venue by 6 p.m. if needed. The most important message came from Caleb at 8:30. Mom, I love you. Thank you for being here. I know you and Sabrina got off on the wrong foot, but I think you'll learn to appreciate each other. Appreciate each other. If only he knew. The ceremony at Desert Ridge Country Club started at 4. I arrived early and found my place, table 12, back corner near the service entrance, close enough to hear dishes clatter and servers talk. But table 12 had a perfect view of the entire room. Guests filtered in around 3:30. Sabrina's family entered together, impeccably dressed and perfectly in character. The father with confident handshakes, the mother with air-kissed elegance. They were good, I'll give them that, but none of them seemed to know any other guests. They reintroduced themselves to the same people, and whenever conversations dipped below the surface, they redirected like seasoned performers. The ceremony was beautiful. Caleb looked genuinely happy at the altar. Sabrina was stunning in a dress that probably cost more than most cars. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I stayed silent. Not the moment. Some battles require patience. The reception was different. Public toasts, public claims, where lies get harder to maintain. Dinner was served at 7. I ate my chicken and watched the room, noting how Sabrina's family kept checking their phones, more focused on performance than celebration. At 8 Mile, the toasts began. Caleb's best man spoke first, sweet, sincere. Then Sabrina's father rose. Ladies and gentlemen, when my daughter Sabrina first told us about Caleb, we knew she'd found someone special. Polite applause. Our family has always valued integrity, hard work, and respect. We're delighted Sabrina found those qualities in Caleb. The irony stung. Then Sabrina stood and everything changed. Thank you for being here on our special day, she began, scanning the room with a brittle smile. Marriage is about joining 2 families, not just 2 people. Of course, not all families are the same. Some have histories they're proud of. Others have complications they'd rather forget. A murmur rippled. Caleb's mother, for example, has overcome significant challenges. Addiction specifically. Silence fell. Even the HVAC seemed to hush. We don't judge people for their mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance, she said, in a tone that did exactly that. However, families like ours maintain certain standards. Certain expectations about the kind of people we associate with. Caleb flushed and stood. Sabrina, maybe we should— No, honey. This needs to be said, she turned to me. Your mother has questioned our background, our business, our legitimacy. So let me be clear. My family built success through 3 generations of hard work, education, and ethical practices. We didn't have to claw our way up from rock bottom because we never fell to rock bottom. Half the room froze with raised glasses. We're willing to overlook certain deficiencies for Caleb's sake, but we won't tolerate disrespect from people who should be grateful just to be included in civilized society. There are boundaries, social, professional, personal, that people from our background simply can't cross. She lifted her glass. To new beginnings. High standards and knowing your place. Some clinked. Others stared. Caleb looked mortified. She had just weaponized my recovery in front of 150 people. That's when I saw Dr. Elena Carter slip through a side door with a manila folder. She met my eyes and gave a small nod. It was time. I stood and the room turned. Sabrina, still holding her champagne, looked triumphant. "Sabrina," I said evenly, "that was quite a speech." "Thank you." "Very revealing." Her smile wavered. "I'd like to propose a toast of my own if you don't mind." Caleb shook his head slightly, but I was already walking toward the front. "Actually, I'd like to toast your family, specifically your remarkable family business." Her father shifted in his chair. "But first, I think our guests deserve to know a little more about the people they're celebrating." I raised a hand. "Dr. Carter, would you join me?" Elena stepped forward, calm as a surgeon. "Good evening," she said. "I'm Dr. Elena Carter, Averly's business partner at New Hope Recovery Centers." Sabrina's glass trembled. "This is highly inappropriate. This is our wedding reception." "You're right," I said. "A wedding should celebrate the union of two families. So let's talk about families." Elena opened the folder. 3 weeks ago, Averly asked me to research Sabrina's family background. As a physician and business owner, I have access to certain databases and professional networks. Sabrina's father began to stand. "Now, see here. Please sit down, Mr. Patterson," Elena said evenly. He froze. "My name isn't Patterson." "No, it's Robert Patterson, a character actor represented by Prestige Acting Solutions in Los Angeles." Gasps rippled. Elena held up a photo. "This is your headshot. You specialize in distinguished gentleman roles for corporate videos and dinner theater." Another page. "And this lovely woman isn't Margaret Hartwell. She's Linda Foster, also with Prestige. Specialty, elegant society matron." Sabrina's mother blanched. "The entire Hartwell family," Elena continued, "are professional actors hired to play roles at this wedding." She lifted a stack of contracts. $1,500 per day per actor for 3 months of preparation, approximately $75,000. The room erupted in whispers. "This is insane," Sabrina snapped. "They're lying. Am I?" Elena asked, pulling out her phone. "Mr. Patterson, sorry, Mr. Hartwell, what's your company's address in California?" The man who'd been playing Sabrina's father looked around desperately, opening and closing his mouth without a sound. Sabrina's father tried to recover with a stiff smile. "We don't give out business addresses to strangers," I nodded. "How about your company's phone number?" Silence. "Or the name of a single project your development company has completed?" More silence. Dr. Elena Carter turned to the woman playing Sabrina's mother. "Mrs. Hartwell, tell us about your family's jewelry collection, specifically that Tiffany necklace you're wearing." The woman's hand flew to her throat. "It's not Tiffany." Elena lifted a receipt. "According to this sales record, it was purchased at Tiffany Beverly Hills 3 days ago for $8,000, charged to a card registered to S. Morrison Financial Services." The room buzzed as guests pulled out their phones. Googling Prestige Acting Solutions and S. Morrison Financial Services. Caleb stood, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Sabrina, what is this? What's going on?" Her composure cracked. "It's a misunderstanding. They're confused." "Am I confused about this?" Elena held up another document. "An email thread between you and Prestige Acting Solutions dated 4 months ago. Subject, Extended Family Portrayal Services." She read aloud. "Need 6 actors to portray wealthy California family members for important social events. Real estate development family, old money, very private about business details." The uncle, charming all evening, bolted for the exit. "Leaving so soon?" I called. He kept walking. The cousin followed, then the aunts. Within minutes, 4 of Sabrina's 6 relatives had fled. Only the fake parents remained, blinking like deer in headlights. "This is impossible," Sabrina whispered, shaking. "You're making this up." That's when Frank Davis appeared at the back. I'd texted him during Elena's presentation. "Frank," I said, "perfect timing. Did you bring those pharmacy records we discussed?" He walked forward with a folder. "Sabrina Morrison, I'm Frank Davis, licensed private investigator. I've been researching your background for the past week." "You have no right." "Actually, I do. Prescription monitoring data is part of public health oversight, and you've been very busy." He opened the file. 4 different doctors, 7 different pharmacies, 8 months of doctor shopping. Dr. Martinez, at Phoenix Pain Management, 60 oxycodone for chronic back pain. Dr. Stevens, at Scottsdale Family Medicine, 40 Percocet for dental surgery. Recovery. Dr. Wilson at Mesa Medical, 90. Adderall for adult ADHD, filled at 3 different pharmacies. In the same week, the room was silent except for Sabrina's ragged breathing. Total in the last 2 months alone. Frank looked up. 180 pills. That's not medication, that's abuse. Caleb sank into his chair, head in his hands. I let my voice carry. So the woman who just gave a speech about families with standards, who called me damaged goods for being a former addict, who said I should be grateful just to be included in civilized society. That woman is actively obtaining controlled substances illegally while paying actors to pretend to be her family. Tears streaked Sabrina's face. You don't understand. I needed them. The pressure, the planning, everything had to be perfect. I stepped closer. You built your entire relationship with my son on lies. You've been high for most of the courtship, and you just humiliated me for overcoming the exact same disease you're suffering from right now. It's not the same, she whispered. You're right. It's not. I got help. I got clean. I built a life helping other people recover. You hired actors and stole pills. Caleb finally looked up. Sabrina, is this true? All of it? She couldn't speak. The makeup-streaked bride looked like a costume now. The wedding's off, Caleb said quietly. Caleb, please. The wedding is off, he repeated louder. Everyone, I'm sorry, but there isn't going to be a marriage today. The remaining fake parents seized their moment and practically ran for the door. Real guests froze, some leaving, some filming, some calling relatives to report the disaster. The coordinator hovered helplessly by the cake. But I wasn't done. Before everyone leaves, I said, there's one more thing you should know. Sabrina looked up, mascara smeared. Please, haven't you done enough? Frank, I called. That other information about the prescription fraud investigation? Frank nodded. The Arizona State Board of Pharmacy has been tracking unusual patterns for 8 months. Your name flagged the system 3 weeks ago. What does that mean? Caleb asked. It means obtaining controlled substances by deception, using multiple doctors, and splitting fills across pharmacies to avoid detection are felonies under Arizona law, Frank said. Class 4 felonies, punishable by up to 3 years in prison. The room leaned in. This was no longer family drama. Dr. Carter stepped forward. Sabrina, as a medical professional, I'm required to report suspected prescription abuse involving illegal procurement. You can't do this to me, Sabrina choked. My career, my reputation. What career? I cut in. The fake charity you said you worked for? Elena lifted another sheet. The Hartwell Foundation doesn't exist. The website was created 6 months ago with stock photos and plagiarized text. Frank added, no employment records, no legitimate income. The money in your accounts traces to credit card advances and a personal loan backed by fraudulent statements. Caleb stood, heartbreak sharpening into anger. So nothing was real? Nothing at all? Sabrina reached for him. Caleb, please, I can explain. Explain what? That you've lied to me for 8 months? That you're addicted to pills? That you hired actors to play your family? That you're facing felony charges? I was going to get help, she sobbed. After the wedding, I was going to get clean. Like you were going to tell me about your fake family? I was scared. If you knew the truth, Caleb said, voice rising, is you're exactly what you accused my mother of being, except she got help and built something real. You just built more lies. As if on cue, Sabrina's purse tipped off the head table and burst open. Pills scattered across the white cloth. Oxycodone, Percocet, Adderall, exactly as Frank had described. Gasps. Photos. The coordinator went pale. Jesus, Sabrina, Caleb said, staring. You brought drugs to our wedding. I needed them. The stress, the anxiety. You needed them because you're an addict, I said quietly. Just like I was. But instead of getting help, you attacked me for being honest about my disease. Pastor Mark Johnson, who'd been standing near the altar, stepped forward. Sabrina, you need help. Real help. Not a wedding. Treatment. I don't need treatment, she snapped, scooping pills with shaking hands. I need everyone to mind their own business. It became everyone's business when you made that toast, I replied. When you publicly shamed recovery while secretly using. Elena softened her voice. I run an intervention program at Phoenix General. We can get you into treatment tonight. I'm not going anywhere. This is my wedding day. No, Caleb said, firm now. This was going to be our wedding day. Now it's the day I found out I don't know you at all. He slid off his ring and set it beside the spilled pills, then walked away without looking back. Frank placed a card on the table. My report is already with the state board. Investigators will likely contact you within 48 hours. You need a lawyer and treatment, Elena added. Sabrina looked out over 150 witnesses to her collapse. Some were leaving. Others still filming. A few were Googling prescription fraud penalties. She turned her venom on me. This is all your fault. If you'd just minded your own business. If I'd minded my own business, I said, my son would have married a lie. Someone sick and in denial. Someone who thinks the solution to addiction is attacking other addicts. I found Caleb by the exit, stunned. Son, I'm sorry this happened, but I'm not sorry you learned the truth. He looked at me, eyes wet. Mom, how did you know? 12 years of recovery teaches you the signs. The anger, the defensiveness, the projection. She was accusing me of everything she was doing. He hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in months. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I let her treat you that way. You don't need to apologize for caring, even when they don't deserve it. Behind us, Sabrina argued with the coordinator about refunds. The fake parents were gone. The pills glittered on linen like evidence. It was the most expensive lesson in truth I'd ever witnessed. By Sunday morning, fallout raced through our recovery community. My phone lit up with clients, colleagues, friends. Word travels fast when someone shames recovery and gets exposed as an active user. Elena called first. Averly, Sabrina checked herself into Desert Haven last night. Good, that's the right move. It is. Also, 3 of our clients called me. They heard and wanted to share their own stories about being judged in recovery. I hadn't expected the ripple effect. Marcus, the 24-year-old I'd been mentoring, left a voicemail. Ms. Quinn, I heard what happened. Thank you for standing up for us. My girlfriend's parents give me grief about my past. Seeing how you handled it gives me courage to set boundaries. 3 more clients called with similar messages. This had become a teaching moment about shame and stigma. Caleb came by Sunday afternoon, exhausted but clearer, like fog had lifted. Mom, how long did you know? We sat with coffee at my kitchen table. I suspected for weeks. I didn't have proof until Elena confirmed it. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Would you have believed me? He was quiet. Probably not, I nodded. I had to let you see it yourself, or I'd look like the bitter mother sabotaging her son's happiness. He grimaced. I feel like an idiot. 8 months wasted on lies. Not wasted, I said. You learned what you'll never accept again. He nodded. She's in treatment for at least 30 days. Her lawyer says the pharmacy board case moves forward regardless. Good. Actions have consequences. For all of us. I showed him a local news headline on my phone. Recovery center owner exposes wedding fraud. Bride's prescription abuse. Someone at the wedding was a journalist, I explained. It's gone viral. Caleb's eyes widened. Is that bad for business? Actually, no. We've had a dozen intake calls since yesterday. Apparently, standing up for recovery values resonates. Monday, Frank called. The FBI is looking into S. Morrison Financial Services. Looks like the shell paid for more than actors. Money laundering? Possibly. Funds routed through multiple accounts to obscure source. The wedding fraud may be the least of it. That afternoon, Elena stopped by my office. The actors are cooperating. Sabrina used them for business meetings, social events, even job interviews for a year. How? She was living an elaborate fantasy. The deeper we dig, the bigger the web. Wednesday, Pastor Mark called. Averly, would you speak at our community addiction forum next month? About standing up to stigma and not letting shame define recovery? That's when I saw the real impact. It wasn't just exposing one person's lies. It was refusing to accept that recovery makes you less worthy of respect. Thursday, the Arizona Department of Health Services phoned. Ms. Quinn, we understand you helped identify a prescription fraud case. We'd like your centers to partner on a new monitoring program. By Friday, 3 other recovery center owners had reached out for guidance on handling family shaming. And Saturday morning, the most surprising call of all. Ms. Quinn, this is Patricia Morrison, Sabrina's real mother. I live in Ohio. I wanted to apologize for my daughter's behavior, and thank you for getting her into treatment. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. She's been lying to us for over a year. We thought she was working for a charity, dating a nice young man. We had no idea about the pills, the fake family, any of it. We've tried to get her help for years. Maybe now she'll finally accept that she needs recovery. 3 months later, I learned the most important consequence wasn't punishment. It was the possibility of healing. I was in my office when Caleb knocked. Mom, got a minute? He looked lighter, like he'd finally set down a heavy weight. Always, how are you? Better. I started going to Al-Anon, learning about enabling, codependency, all that. I smiled. How's it going? Hard, but good. I'm realizing I ignored a lot of red flags because I wanted to believe Sabrina was who she claimed to be. He sat across from my desk. I also wanted to tell you, Sabrina's been in treatment for 90 days. She's doing the work. Her counselor says she's finally being honest about her addiction. That's good news. She wrote me a letter apologizing for everything. She asked if I'd consider giving her another chance when she gets out. I kept my expression neutral. What did you tell her? That I appreciate the apology, but I'm not interested in rebuilding a relationship that was built on lies. How do you feel about that? Sad but clear. I deserve someone who tells me the truth, even when it's difficult. We sat quietly. Mom, I owe you an apology too, for not believing you, for letting her disrespect you, for asking you to tone down your recovery. You don't owe me anything. Caleb, you were trying to make a relationship work. That's not a character flaw. But I should have stood up for you sooner. Maybe, but you stood up for yourself when it mattered most. He nodded. I've been thinking about what you said that night, the difference between private and secretive. I won't ignore that distinction again. Good. That's wisdom earned the hard way. He stood, then paused in the doorway. Oh, and Mom? I'm proud of how you handled everything. You could have destroyed her publicly, but you told the truth and let people draw their own conclusions. After he left, I sat there thinking about boundaries, the line between shame and accountability, and how recovery isn't just about getting clean. It's about living with dignity. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my 24-year-old client. Ms. Quinn, set boundaries with girlfriend's family. They respect my recovery now. Thank you for showing us how. 12 years ago, I thought recovery was about not using. Now I know it's about not accepting less than you deserve. If you're watching this and struggling with addiction stigma from family or friends, remember, your past doesn't define your worth. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of getting help. And if you're in recovery yourself, please share your story in the comments. The more we speak up, the less power shame has over any of us. Thank you for listening.